different show. But, man, I tell you what, the star of the show I'm going to introduce because you know him well. Former great athlete at Sandia High School. He's been a media member for umpteen years. He is a man about town, big sports fan, maybe the biggest I know. The Chicago Bears do not have a bigger sports fan than this guy. The ultimate Brian Urlacher fan. Yeah, what a scat pack he was for Jim Ottman at Sandia High School. Got to play in the championship game at Bulldog Bowl against the Artesia Bulldogs. He's my longtime friend, my honorable friend. Man, I love him like a brother. His name is Marty Watts, and here he is. Marty, how are you, man?
It's great, and American Talk It Up. And of course, we'll be talking about sports subjects. We'll be talking about subjects around the United States. We've got people calling in around the country. We've got some local stories. And boy, I'm really excited. This is our second segment we're doing, and every segment we're going to get better. But boy, folks, every day, every show is going to be pretty exciting the way I'm looking at it.
Well, you're exciting. I don't know a more exciting sports fan than you. You have so many stories. I can throw anything at you. You'll have a reaction. And I'm going to try one just off the top, okay? Jim Ottman.
One of the greatest coaches of all time, and he was the backfield coach when I played, but he won one state championship with one of the best running backs. He might not be as fast as the guy we're bringing on, Mike Carter. He coached Mike Carter and Phil Trent, and they won one championship, but he had some great teams at Sandia. But their biggest nemesis was the guy we're bringing on, the Highland Hornets.
Wow. Let me just bring up the name Highland Hornets. Experiences against Highland for me. I could talk all day. Highland Hornets.
I think of Ernie Jones, David Jones. I think of the guy we're going to bring on. They had some great teams. And Sandia won a couple of those games back-to-back, but I never beat them. The only thing I've ever beat Highland was in a B-team game, and actually the guy I'm talking to was in that game back in 1968, a B-team game. But Highland was the toughest team, and they were the best team in my era, especially from the 60s. Sandia had a couple good teams, but really the Hornets were. And the guy we're going to bring on, do we have his picture up there on the screen?
We're digging for it right now.
So the guy I'm going to bring on, in my opinion, was the greatest track and field star and athlete in my era, David Powdrell. And you probably have heard of the Powdrell name. It's the famous barbecue joint they have on 4th Street on Central. When I was a little boy, that was the place to get barbecue, the best ribs in town. And I used to go in that place, and I used to talk to David's dad. I said, can you give me that secret recipe for the barbecue sauce? And he says, Martin Luther, we're not going to give you that sauce, but why don't you just take a bucket of the, bottle of it home? So I've got David Powdrell, and we've got his picture up there, right? Now, that's a picture of David when he was in high school senior. Now, the reason why we're bringing him on is this is the week of the 50th anniversary of the long jump. He holds the longest held record in track and field, 50 years. He jumped 1970, 24, I think 3.5 feet, and it's still the record, and nobody's come close to beating it. You think somebody would. So, David, welcome onto the show. Say hi to everybody.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing, Marty?
Henry T is right here for you. Wow.
Hello, Henry T.
That is a record that, records are made to be broken with one exception. Yours, Dave.
I think it should have been done. So we'll see what happens.
Let's go back to that day. How did you know on that day, because we all wake up as athletes, I feel it. Oh, I know I'm going to throw a no-hitter. Hey, I'm going to pole vault 18 feet. How did you know that day that something was good, that was in store for the whole state, that they would watch you jump 20 feet? Wow.
Okay, the thing about it is I didn't know, and I had to do it. So it was a combination of things. But I have been having good practices all week, and I was ready to do that and much further. As a matter of fact, a week later, I went to an All-American meeting. I jumped 25 feet. So It was due. I was due to do it.
So let's set up the scenario. I was an eyewitness of this jump, and he was down to his last jump. His first two jumps were scratch, so he was going down to his last jump. And at that time, I don't know if Bernie Bowers or Leroy Spicer was in second place. One of those guys were. I'm trying to remember, David, but I remember telling Louis Martinez and I don't think it was somebody else. I said, you know what? It would be a shame if David doesn't win this event, because all year long he was killing us. Every week he was jumping 24, 25 feet. And actually, I didn't even know what the record was at that time, David. I just knew when you went down, when I went to you, I said, move your marker back. You did a little bit. And when he hit the board, Henry, he was 3-4 inches before the board. So that jump he made was probably over 25 feet. And it was 24, 3.5, and it's been on the record book for 50 straight years.
Yeah, and forgive me for my boo-boo there, 24 point whatever, rounded off to 25 feet. That's a long distance, Marty. And
yeah.
Dave accomplished it on that day. But on that day, he had to run some other events. It was not just one event for Dave.
So, in my opinion, Dave, he won in the 1971 track meet. He won the long jump. He won the 100-yard dash. In those days, it was the 100 yards. He won the 220. He anchored both relays. He won 5 events. Now, the only thing I can think of is you go back to 1953 when Tom McDonald won 7 events. So that was back when you could run 7 events. But when Mike was doing it, you could only run 5 events. Am I right, David?
Yeah, that's right. That's correct.
How do you get ready for all those events? Go ahead. Explain all those events for our audience.
Well, I'll explain it like this. It's grueling, and it has a tendency, when you're a long jump specialist and you have so much to do, it has a tendency to kind of drain you. And but Coach Sanchez was so good at getting the best out of people until he kind of just kept me on an even keel and allowed me to perform. The long jump is a combination of speed and accuracy, hitting the board, and pretty much doing like Michael Jordan and flying. So the long jump is what I like the best, and is what I was the best at. The rest of it was just pure speed, and that's what made me excel in football. I was running like I was scared. So if you can imagine a dog chasing a guy, that's how you run. You just get going. So that's basically what I was doing, because they had some good players all over, including at Sandy, and they would run you over pretty good. But I did make All-American in football, 71, and I was an All-American in track and field, 70 and 71. And the 5 events, the 200 and the 200 was the running event I liked the most. But we had I had a good team both years. In 70 and 71, when that thing was accomplished, and all we had to do was just get that baton to me, and it was a done deal. So
nobody came close.
Pretty exciting.
I remember in the 100-yard dash, Ray Bars was in the finals, and you smoked him, and you smoked everybody back in those days. The thing I remember, David, is that I went back 2 days ago, and I went back and looked at what was the records were in the Oklahoma State High School Championship. I went up and looked at the Colorado State High School record. So if David would have been in the Colorado State High School Championship, he would have won 5 events. Even his relay time was better. And then in the state of Oklahoma, with all those great athletes, David would have been the state champion in Oklahoma in 5 events. So just to put this in perspective, how great an athlete he was. And I remember the only other guy I thought could give you a race, maybe Mike Carter. You and Carter, that would have been a great race. Maybe I would love to see you race against Bobby Newcomb, Mike Carter, and you. Who would win that race?
I think Bobby. I think that I was pretty fast, but Bobby Newcomb is probably the best next to Terry Landrum. Terry Landrum. He was my runner. He was a running back, and we played backfield together. And then he ended up playing for the Cardinals. And he was probably the best athlete I've seen next to Ernie Jones. Ernie Jones was a great athlete, and these guys were back in that day. But Marty, let me say this: in those days, like I jumped 24.4, but there was Leroy, there was Terry, there was a guy by the name of Eddie Young. All these guys were at 24.1, 23.11. It wasn't like it was a runaway. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
that was the talent in them days. And then for a long time, I was disappointed that the record never got broken. But I know myself. I could have jumped much further in that state meet if I didn't have to do those 5 events, because the 5 is actually 10. You see what I'm saying? And then you're in the hot sun all day, and it's breaking you down. And so that's the reason why I was in the predicament that I was in. Like I said, the following week I jumped well over 25 feet, still in high school, down in El Paso in an All-American meet. So just doing those 5 events is a lot of work and a lot of concentration. So you have to be a pretty decent athlete. But I think Bobby Newcomb, I spoke to him the day of the track meet. He was doing the same event. I said, I don't know how you're going to do it, but if you could talk Coach Sanchez into letting you cut off a couple of those events, you can break that record. But he didn't get it. So, and then I was upset. Now I'm happy because I get to do interviews at 67 years old. That's pretty cool.
Well, you know, the funny thing is, David, Terry Landrum, who played in 2 World Series, okay, he came.
That's right.
Didn't he come in second in the 100-yard dash too? He was there.
You know what, Marty? I really don't remember. I don't remember where Terry was at. But I know that Terry. Well, see, that was. I don't know if he ran the 100 because he was a sophomore that year. In 71, I think he did take second.
Yeah,
but there was that guy Leroy Spicer. He was a real good athlete. There was some athletes at Albuquerque High that were phenomenal before my time. They had a guy by the name of Dale Blanks, a guy by the name of Hiram Carroll. Dale Blanks jumped 26 feet in high school.
Ray Eppley.
So Blake jumped 26 feet.
I think if you go to Albuquerque High right now and you look up the record, the school record, I think it's either 25 or 26 feet. And my brothers went to school with these guys, and these are the type of athletes that we were around, and these were the type of marks that we expected out of ourselves. It was just that way. Me and Leroy Spicer lived two houses from each other. I should have went to Albuquerque High, but we moved right in my 8th grade year. I went to school with Leroy Spicer, my cousin Ron, all the young brothers. I grew up right there, what we call the sticks. Broadway and Edith and Walter and right there. So that's where I grew up at. And that's just the type of athlete you had in those days. We played everything hard. We played horseshoes hard. We played basketball hard. We played everything hard. So I remember, I have to attribute a lot of my success to that.
Your brother Joe Powdrell was a great pole vaulter who went on pole vault for the University of Mexico. And Leroy Spicer, I think in that meet, had 23 feet. So when you came down to your last jump, and by the way, folks who are watching this podcast, in the state of New Mexico, you have to do the record at the state track meet. So there's guys who've jumped 25 feet or whatever, but it has to be done at the state track meet. And right now, nobody's ever done it. I don't think anybody's jumped 24 feet since you've done it. 50 years ago.
I don't think so.
What made you a good athlete? When you think back, what created you? Who inspired you?
My father and my mother. My mother and my father. One thing was that my dad, we had just moved here from Texas, and always made us work all summer. You know, we went to work with him. We worked with him. My mother taught us, do your best, do your best. And then when sports came about, if you weren't doing good and excelling, you had to go to work. So I was trying to be the best I could be, so I didn't have to go to work. You know what I'm saying? So that was part of it. But they gave me a work ethic. My parents, my mother, everybody knows my dad. And he was overall, but my mother was a hero. She was quite a lady, and I think she made me a good athlete and a good person. But now you gotta contribute. You got people like Coach Gentry, Coach Sanchez, and the people that you compete against. All of that makes you better. So I think that's what I just took it and ran with it, and it came out okay for me. So, you know,
David, you know, it's amazing. My father, we used to start buying ribs from you guys when you were cooking in your backyard. Remember, you guys used to deliver? Your dad had a barbecue pit out there by the university, and then you opened up your first barbecue store on San Pedro. I used to go there. But, you know, let's get back to your track and field. What Tom McDonald did in 1953, 7 events. now we know how hard it is. That's been amazing. And you're one of the few guys, you're in that Tommy McDonald category, and you know Tommy is one of the greatest Hornets, just like you were. And, of course, when you were going to Highland, they had his photograph, his uniform, I think it was retired, wasn't it, at Highland?
Tommy McDonald's?
Yeah.
Oh, I think so.
And
I think so. He came. You see, if you look at it, he was what, in the 50s?
53.
Athletes,
1953.
Yeah, see, that's when I was born. So, yeah. So, you know, New Mexico has always had great athletes in that Highland. Every year they have a super athlete. Quavo come up with super. I had a nephew, Mike Powdrell. He could have broke that record, but they just didn't. For some reason, it didn't come out of him. I had a grandson that went to Albuquerque High, and he had the same speed, same everything, and it's just not where they're at. You know, they just say their temperament is, how do you jump that far? And in our day, it was, I'm going to jump that far. So it's a different attitude, I think.
So,
Dave, the name Powdrell is synonymous with greatness. It's synonymous with your great restaurants. Oh, my goodness, are they great. But the Powdrell name is inundated with athletes. So many everywhere. Why?
Right.
What brought that on?
Well, like I said, it's a work ethic. Ron Powdrell, he was an All-American in basketball. My brother, Joe, his daughter, his granddaughter was I think she was an All-American. She's running up in Colorado now, and she's doing really well. She won, I think, 3 state gold medals. And it's kind of like horses. You breed it. I hate to say it, but it's breeding and it's upbringing, and it's, you know, it's plus God was the way my mom and dad did everything. You know, I wanted to bring up something if I could. Marty?
Yeah.
Hello. Is Marty there?
Yeah, I'm
hey,
right
Marty,
here.
Do you remember taking me to a rugby game one time?
Yeah, I tried to get you to play rugby.
You know what? That right there, I say, because you know how the field is wide. No matter how fast you are, you can't get away.
Right.
And so I retired right after we finished, Marty. I never picked up a rugby ball again, and I never watched rugby because it was so frustrating.
Well,
I couldn't have any success.
Louis Martinez and I had this strategy to get you out on the rugby field and play for the Aardvarks. But I understand. It's amazing. I played 15 years after my college days, but
right.
you know,
you were good.
I was nuts to play it, I guess. But, you know, the thing I was going to bring up to you, I want everybody to know, if you want to go to Powdrell's on 4th Street on Central, you guys have curbside. You can order ribs right now and barbecue curbside pickup. Is that correct?
Yes. I think you can go in and pick it up, or you can call it in and get it curbside. I'm not sure about the curbside on 4th Street. On Central, you can call in and go in and pick it up. But I think now that they're partially open. So I took the time off for doing the virus, so I haven't went back to work yet. So I'm not in and I think I'm gonna retire. So I'm not in tune with exactly everything that they're doing right now. My brother Joe and my brother Mike are running it, and they're doing the job like my dad would want them to do it. So,
you know, the thing about your dad, my dad was Martin Luther Watts Sr., I'm Martin Luther Jr., and we would walk in, and your dad said, well, here comes Martin Luther Watts. And I used to ask your dad, can you give me that special secret recipe for the sauce? And your dad said, he says, Martin Luther, I can only give you a few things, but you're not going to get that sauce recipe. That's a family secret. Does anybody know that sauce besides you and your brothers? Anybody knows the recipe?
I don't think so, but we've had people that you can figure it out. At one time, we had a contract, we were in negotiations with Hunt's Barbecue, and they were talking about purchasing it, and they actually took the sauce and put it on a diagnostics machine, and they figured out what was in it.
Boy, that sauce is great.
Yeah, thank you. But they never use it, and we're doing fine. And that's what we need to do, is get that sauce out there, and everybody quit working so hard. That's what we really need to do. So, and I appreciate you mentioning the barbecue. I think that this is good advertisement. And I'd like to say that during this time with the COVID and everything, Albuquerque needs to take care of its own.
And you know, on that pitch,
things are going well.
by the way, on that pictures, there's Dennis Carpenter. He owns Little Anita's restaurants, and he owns a Fiesta Mexican restaurant. So anybody would want to go to his place, Dennis Carpenter.
Right.
It's called Fiesta and Little Anita's, and some of the best Mexican food in Albuquerque, right, David? Dennis really knows how to do it.
I can't remember what the name of it was, but Dennis's father, I think it was Caps or Capos.
Yeah, Caps.
Or something. He had a restaurant when we were in high school. I think it was Caps. And he was down on Central, and he was like one of the best places to go eat ever. I had a guy that played for me named Wes Arroghetti. Do you remember Wes?
Oh, yes. He was a track and field star.
Yes. Yeah, he played football too. I think he was an All-American. I had a front line in football that was unreal. It was Dennis Carpenter, Jim Dodds, Wes Arroghetti, Ross Mayhew. Those guys were all great. But yeah, he was in the restaurant business also. So everybody had a way to work and make a living. I think that's what it was all about.
I remember my senior year, I'm playing against Highland, and I'm coming across the middle, and there was Mike Lucero, and he just leveled me, knocked me down, and I was down on the ground, David, and he says, "Welcome to Highland Hornet football, Watts." And he looked at me and he smiled at me. And, you know, Mike Lucero ended up becoming one of my best friends. He's now a fireman. And it's funny how he and I became best friends afterwards, but he knocked the heck out of me. He said, "Welcome to Highland Hornet football" at Wilson Stadium. I'll never forget that.
Him and I we came friends this way. It was back when Muhammad Ali was famous. So I came to school and I was doing the dance and boxing, and he squared off on me and I hit him, and he chased me for 3 weeks because he was going to rip my brains out, and finally we got to be good friends. But yeah, he was a very fierce person.
Henry T. again here. When I say the name Bill Gentry, what do you say?
Honorable. He's an honorable man. And he was him and my dad were cut from the same log or the same mold. Just John Wayne, old school. You put in the work. You do things right, you'll win. And if you not win the game, but you'll win in life. And that's kind of where that was his approach. And you know, he was good for many years here at Albuquerque. And how you get that out of some years you don't have the players, but for some reason he's still capable of getting it done. So I honor him with honor. That's all I can say about Bill Gentry. He's a great one.
I've got one story, David. I got one story that Ernie Jones told me years ago, about 25 years ago. Ernie was doing a Highland Hornet practice. I think Ernie was a junior at the time, and I remember this. Ernie got in an argument with Coach Gentry, and he was going to walk off the field. And he's walking off the field, and Gentry says, "Ernie, if you cross that 25-yard line, never to come back, you're going to regret what you did." And Ernie just walks to the 25-yard line, and he turns back and walks back. And he never had an argument with Coach Gentry. But that's how powerful Gentry was on these players, right, David?
Yes, he was, and not only powerful, but he wanted what was best for you. See what I'm saying? He knew that if Ernie crossed that line, he was going to be doing something that was going to hurt Ernie. And quitting ain't one of them. You know, he didn't do quitters. If you quit, you had a problem with him.
So, hey, David, we're about to wrap it up. We want to congratulate you for 50 years. Can you imagine holding a record for 50 years and still there? Will it last another 50 years? Will this record go for 100 years, Henry? Or David?
I don't know. It shouldn't. It's not that far. But I just don't think it should. But there's always somebody. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jordan's on his way. You know, so they got him coming again. Marty, thank you very much. And Henry?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Henry.
You're the man. Thank you so much for blessing so many people today with your appearance on this show.
I appreciate it. I'll call you guys and get the information on the podcast so I can watch it and see what I'm doing, okay?
Are both stores open?
Yes, they both are. The 4th Street store at 5209 4th.
I'm going to go down to the 4th Street What do you recommend Henry T buys today for lunch? I'm going to 4th Street.
Since it's been a while since you had some, you need to buy what you want. I'm not going to be telling you to buy anything. So.
I would buy the brisket.
Call down
the
there
brisket.
See if they're partially open, and let things. That way you won't make a ride for nothing. Okay.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you guys very much, Marty.
All right, David. Thanks a lot. We're going to break away for a commercial break, and we'll be coming back for segment number 2. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the second segment of American Talk It Up with featuring Henry DeFoya, who's been on the air and broadcasting for 41 years. I've been around radio for 7 years, and of course, just been around sports most of my life. But hey, Henry, you know what I want to talk about? Something really touched my heart Saturday morning. I got up. I live right across the street, if you don't know, by Cibola High School, and I live in that Cibola neighborhood. And so Saturday morning, I got up to go get some coffee, and I get on Ellison Road, and that's where Cibola High School is. And all of a sudden, I see 300 to 400 cars lined up with balloons and convertibles. And what's those cars where they have the sunroofs? And people and all these kids were in their gowns, and they're all yelling and screaming. And all of a sudden, I pulled over and stopped, and I got up and I saluted them. I did a salute. Because I almost started crying because these kids did not have a graduation. And they're always going to go down as the COVID-19 kids. And it just really hit me. And then all of a sudden, this one car, the traffic was so jammed up, they were doing a parade through the Cibola parking lot. And I looked at this woman, and she was hugging her daughter in a pickup truck. And she looks at me and she says, "Yes, sir, that's my baby." Mm-hmm. And I looked at her and I winked at her and I said, "Boy, you're a proud mother." And it was just very touching. And that was going on all over Albuquerque and other high schools all over the state of New Mexico with their gowns. They didn't have a graduation. Now, back when I graduated in 1971, I had the largest graduating class in the state of New Mexico. I think it was 1,222 people. And in that class of 1971 at Sandia, we produced the governor of New Mexico, Gary Johnson, 2-time. He ran for president. So my thinking, these kids are going to go down in history of the COVID-19. So who's going to be the next governor out of these kids? What do you think, Henry?
First of all, the story is touching. Next of all, for you to bring it up on this show is also touching because it says a lot about you. And I'll never forget my graduation. You haven't forgot yours. But these kids, that's all they were going to have. They didn't have the big ceremony where they give the list of great achievements and all the pageantry that goes on. The student body is there to watch. All the parents dressed up to the hilt, and all the pageantry, wearing the gowns in front of the huge crowd. They didn't get that. That's a lot.
No valedictorian was shown. They didn't get the honor of the valedictorian. No commencement speech. God, it's just a tragedy, and I just I had tears in my eyes seeing these kids, and they're just they're in these pickup trucks, convertibles, the sunroofs, and it's just in their gowns, and it was just a very touching moment, and I'm praying that something great's these kids will go down in history, but boy, I had that experience, you did, and when we had our experience, we were at the pit. It was sold out. Matter of fact, when I walked down the ramp to get my diploma, that was the biggest crowd I was ever in. It was a sold out pit. You know how big the pit was, and so it just kind of hit me at that moment. And believe me, how many times you just pull your car over, and I got out and I saluted those kids. And it was just a very special moment. And I'm just praying that these kids are going to go on. And they didn't have any spring sports. There was no state track meet, no baseball, no softball. And these kids got robbed, Henry. They really did.
Well, their personalities came together. They had fun. They made the best of whatever they could do. and they'll never forget the moment. But hopefully, in the near future, their school will provide them a night. I mean, we as administrators, we as teachers, we can really work on things, and I hope the administration, in that particular case, Cibola, can recreate a night just for those seniors.
Well, maybe they do. Now, school's going to start in August. Now, Henry, I think the kids should go back to school. I just don't think they should. Maybe they should be safe precautions, maybe do temperature checks. Maybe every week they do a virus check on one of those Abbott machines. But I think they need to go back. And I think they can control this. Now, the thing is, will the parents feel safe to send your kids? Of course, August is like 10 years away right now. We don't, as this thing is changing every week, but I'm praying that we have a football season. There'll be cheerleaders, there'll be marching bands. It would just be a tragic not to have a fall sports season. And I'm just hoping that I want everybody to be safe, and I think they can do it, Henry. But what's your thoughts on that?
Well, and if it's possible, the governor's going to look objectively at it. And I think I commend her. She's doing a fabulous job with this huge challenge, but she's watching closely the stats, the doctor's information. What are we doing? She hasn't made it a political warfare experience. She's really observing and really looking out for our best interests. So we'll follow her leadership, number one. I'm going to take that optimistic look and think that the kids will go back to school. We'll have football this coming fall, and we're going to have a real hot summer and burn that virus right out of here.
Well, Michelle Lujan Grisham, who's our governor, I've met her a couple of times. She's a sweet woman. I mean, I like her personally. I hope we can bring back more businesses back as soon as possible, and I hope that speeds up. I think she's waiting until after Memorial Day, and I think more businesses open up. I've talked to some restaurant owners. They're prepared to have restaurants where there's only 20 people in there, and I think they can make it. But then again, people have to feel safe they're going to the restaurant, and that's until that fear factor is down, you probably won't see a lot of people going out there. Now, here's another thing. Guys like you and I, we're at the age group that we might not be able to go to games because they might not let us go because we're in that age factor. Henry, I hope it doesn't happen, but geez, I know, but
didn't think of that one.
But these kids, they just broke my heart. These COVID-19 kids, they'll go down. Of all the years we've grown up, we've never had a situation like this in our lifetime, and maybe we'll never see this again. I hope we never see it again. I hope we learn from this lessons. There's some things we can learn, but I will tell you this: these kids are going to always be special, and I hope anybody that when these kids go out for job interviews and stuff, give these kids a special. I mean, they're special people.
They'll get a special look. I think their time will come. You take a little away and you give a lot back. And I hope they get a lot back. They've sacrificed. Now let's get the reward coming their way. Whatever way it comes, I think they will be rewarded in a very, very special way in their lifetime.
And what makes the kids in New Mexico special, we're a state that really works on diversity of culture. They call us the Rainbow Coalition. Our Hispanic population goes back 300 some years. The worst thing you could call somebody in New Mexico is a Mexican because they've been in the state for 300 years. The Foya name probably been here since 1660, probably, right?
At least.
And then the Native Americans, they're the first ones here in North America. And the Native American population is getting hurt really bad right now. And my heart's really out to them. Because right now, in the three counties where there's the biggest population is Cibola County, San Juan, and McKinley. And that's where most of the cases are right now. And we just pray that these Native Americans get through this period. And boy, they're special people, and I've gotten to know a lot of the Native Americans tribe. You have too. You've met many governors over the years that you've been around. They're special people.
Well, Marty, you covered that subject well. What else do you want to do today?
We'll come back to the third segment for America Talk It Up.
Stay right there. We're coming back.
Well, welcome back to this part of the show about the Lobo football. And, you know, folks, if you don't know, Henry has his own podcast on Mondays at 11 o'clock and Wednesday 11 live. And this week, he did an interview with Danny Gonzalez, our new head football coach for the Lobos. And please go to Facebook and watch his show every week so you can get familiar with Henry. And Henry, what he does best is interview great celebrities, and that's what he's been doing for 40 years. But here's my take on this whole thing. I'm so proud, coming from Albuquerque, and I grew up here, to have one of our own guys who went to Valley High School, grew up in the North Valley, played for the Lobos, first Hispanic head coach. But you know, Henry, I don't care if he was green, yellow, blue. He was the right guy for the right job. And another thing is he's going to connect to the people, but he's a great football mind. He's one of the great defensive coaches. Study under Rocky, and because of him, Rocky is now coaching with us.
Enthusiastic, salesman, personality in Danny, shakes a lot of hands, smiles at you when he shakes your hand, and brilliant when he does the X's and O's. When he's with his team, and we've all watched him here, he is a motivator. Look out. On the field, he says, man, I'm in a different location. Mind-wise, he's in the fight, he's in the fire, and a very competitive head coach.
So check that show out. Just go up to Facebook and type in Henry T. Game Face Live Podcast, and you can watch the whole segment. But here's what I'm thinking with the Lobos. Now, I think the Lobos have a chance to win 5 or 6 games, maybe more. I think the first game against Idaho State on August 29th is going to be a key game. And then they go on the road and play a Power 5 team, Mississippi State. And, of course, Zach Arnett, the kid from La Cueva High School, played for the Lobos. He was the defensive coordinator the last couple of years for Rocky, is now the defensive coordinator for Mississippi State. So that's going to be a great – you know, it's going to be a great game between the two coaches. And then we come back on the road and play Tommy Trojan and the USC Trojans in the Coliseum. And can you imagine Tommy Trojan and that big white horse? So I know Rocky would love to put on a show in the Coliseum.
I like that challenge. You know, finally, we, the little guys, get to go against one of the giants of college football, forever being a giant, and here we do. We go to the Coliseum, 100,000 seats, and national audience, and a chance to play one of the big boys. And you know, some people say they're the perennial powerhouse of all time. But isn't that a great challenge for the Lobos?
Oh, yeah. And back in 1963, 64, I was visiting my grandparents there in Long Beach, my mom and dad. We went to Disneyland. And my dad and I, it was in early August, we went to an early exhibition game between the Dallas Cowboys and the Los Angeles Rams. That was the first time I ever stepped in the Coliseum. And what a place it was. Tom McDonald was playing for the Cowboys at the time. Don Meredith, Don Perkins from University of Lobo. Wow. So that was, as a young boy, that was quite a treat for me to go to the Coliseum. It was just an exhibition, game. But I will tell you this. We're going to be underdogs against Mississippi State and USC. Then we come back the following week and we go on the road and we go play the Aggies in Las Cruces, New Mexico State.
And they will be tough.
So we should, after 4 weeks, I'm hoping we're 2-2. Okay. Now, if we pull off an upset, it'd be great. But realistically, we'd probably be 2-2, and then we come back home and play the University of Massachusetts. That should be a up in the grabs game. It will be anybody's game. If we win that game, we're 3-2 after 5 games, and then we go into the Mountain West schedule, and if we can pull up a couple victories, all of a sudden we have 6 wins. Maybe 3. I would say we have a chance to beat San Jose State. There's some teams that, as you know, last year the Lobos could have won 3 games. They lost in the fourth quarter. And it's going to come down to turnovers, takeaways. So I think if Rocky can get this defense playing the way they play, and of course it was the worst defense in the country, 125th in pass defense, 126 in total defense. Only Rocky we can only go up.
Yeah, and see, you hit it right on the head. Rocky is the big difference, if you will. Finally, a defensive team that you have confidence in that's going to make the big stop. And, of course, Danny, with all that enthusiasm, he gives you that possibility of an upset, sort of an attitude every game. Because with the media all week, he's going to tell you, we are capable of winning this game. That's what he does so well. He doesn't just sell us. He sells those players that attitude.
So he talks about red shirts on the ball. Now, the thing about that 3-5 defense, there is a lot of gamble. There'll be times when somebody runs an 80-yard touchdown on us, but that's the gamble you take. But we're going to go after sacks. We're going to make the key of today's football is you got to get 2 or 3 turnovers. If you're an underdog, if you're an underdog, the difference in a game is the turnovers. If you can get 2 or 3 turnovers, takeaways, making things happen, that could be the difference of the ball game. And usually, if you can get 3 to 4 3-and-outs, you can win a game. There's going to be a lot of scoring going on. Now, the key for the Lobos, I still believe we have to get the quarterback situation solidified. We had that problem the last 3 years. I do believe in what's his name? Talua. Tabaka Lua. I believe in him, but he just hasn't performed consistently. So it's going to be, and then we have that junior college player, Hughes. He could be in the mix. He's the better thrower. So it's going to be interesting, but the offense has to get going. Now, we have speed in the wide receiver. We got some running backs I think are going to really be great. We've got most of our offensive line back, our tight ends back, Mike Williams. So we're going to have some weapons. And I do think that if the defense can perform, we can't get any worse than the worst in the country.
Yeah. I think you wanted to talk about Marcus Williams, but I want you to know another big difference. It's an intangible. Is the big Lobo crowd that's going to be in the stands again. Can you imagine the sight, the team coming out of the locker room this time and say, wow, somebody came to see us. We got a big crowd. And you know you're an athlete. I've been an athlete. You like knowing there's a big crowd watching you. It's another addition to your personality and athleticism on that day. What do you think the difference is if there's a big Lobo crowd from now on?
It's going to be big. And, you know, for the we have about 52% of the population Hispanic. They need to get behind Danny because Danny's one of them. All of us has to get behind Danny. And we need to get out there. And you got to give these Lobos a chance. Now, it's going to be tough because they didn't able to finish spring practice. He's putting the new defense in. But I think this team, we got a great opener against Idaho State. It's a game we can win. And we can beat the Aggies. And we should be favorites or at least a toss-up against the University of Massachusetts. Okay? And then when we get to the Mountain West, Henry, anything can happen. And by the 6th game, our defense should be playing good. We should have some people, you know, and here's the thing that nobody realized. Rocky Long knows every Mountain West team backwards and forwards. You don't think he'll have a game plan? And here's another thing that nobody thinks about. You know why it's so hard to practice, get ready for the wishbone? That's why Air Force has advantage, because you don't see the triple option until you play Air Force. Well, here's the problem with that defense. You're not going to see that defense until you play the Lobos. That means you got 4 days of practice to get ready for that famous Lobo defense.
You know, one thing that a lot of people forgot,
right.
That's the offense that Rocky Long played in when he was at UNM. Is that
wishbone triple option?
Wishbone, and he ran it so nicely. and he knows how to defend it.
Well, and so I think if we can win those 3 games, we're 3-2. Now we just got to find 3 games in that Mountain West schedule. And you know, last year the Lobos came close to winning a bunch of those games. So it's going to come down to turnovers. Our biggest killer was we turned the ball over last year. There were some games we had 4 to 5 turnovers, and if we're not going to win if we play like that.
Yeah, they don't want to make mistakes. They want to be flawless in every game. And they'll be unhappy if they don't play flawless football. So we got some fresh coaching staffs in there, a team that's going to be fired up to play. The change is going to do everybody good, but we're going to have fans in the stands and a coaching staff that's bolstered by a new coach and the great Rocky Long. Linsmeyer's back, line coaching. Oh, I can hardly wait to buy a ticket and to watch the Lobos play.
And now here's the deal. For people who live here in New Mexico, you can get a Lobos season ticket with no money down. You can buy it right now, no money down. And you can get these tickets for $8 or $9 a game per game if you buy the season ticket package. So I'm just telling you right now, they should get behind it. I actually think that the Lobos have a chance to win 6 games if they can get through those 3 games we talked about.
Can you imagine if the Lobos pull off 6 wins and go to a bowl game? The magic overnight, 1 season, and then more ticket sales next year, better recruits. This program is on its way up.
I want to tell you, I'm so excited. I hope we have a football season. We might not have the full crowds, but boy, we got to get behind this team. And Henry, we've got to break away for our last segment. We're going to come back and talk about Michael Jordan, the last dance, some of my experience with the Bulls and your experience, and that's how we're going to wrap up America Talk It Up.
All right, let's do it.
The world-famous Laguna Burger is beautifully handcrafted. A burger that's created from certified Angus beef, sinfully cooked to juicy perfection, and garnished with New Mexico's Hatch green chili. Tempt your taste buds with mouth-watering fresh ingredients.
Cut! We're gonna need another Laguna Burger. Try the irresistible, world-famous Laguna Burger. Visit thelagunaburger.com. It's fresh with a kick. Take 32.
We're on the ball.
We're on the ball.
We're on the ball, Henry. You and I are on the ball. We're on the ball. This is our theme song. We're ready to go in this final segment. We're on the ball.
And I'm supposed to be singing this song, right?
Yes, sing it.
So we're on the ball.
All right. So what we're going to be talking about on this segment of American Talk It Up, we're going to talk about Michael Jordan. And, of course, he just did it. They did a 10-part series on him on ESPN called The Last Dance. And I was fortunate to be able to go to one practice of the Bulls. I got to know Luke Long. I think it's 1997. But
before you go there, give me your impression of the series. I was engulfed every night. It was such a well-done production, number one. What did you think of the production and then the incredible ratings that it got during this special time?
Well, you know, I lived in Chicago during that period from 94. I was there to 2005. So I saw a lot of those games. I saw it, you know, it became a thing in Chicago. You never missed a Bulls game on television. It was on WGN, and you just never missed a game. And I went to maybe 2 or 3 games per year. I was lucky to get some tickets. And, of course, that's when Luke Longley came onto the team. And, you know, Michael, you know, that team was so excited. They were like rock stars. And anywhere they went in Chicago, was just massive crowds all over the place. And, I mean, it was the most exciting time. And I was so fortunate to live through that period. I was there, and I saw Michael Jordan. I saw Rodman at clubs and stuff. They were just, and then I got to know Luke Longley since we're Lobos, and I got a chance to go to one of their practices. But before I go into the practice, tell me what you got to see Michael Jordan played here at the Pit.
Yeah, and my son's a Michael Jordan fanatic. The Bulls were his favorite team during that era. The thing that I noticed in this series was, wow, we get to see Michael do all those special physical heroics again.
Oh, yeah.
And it brought back the past into the future. And I said, LeBron, Michael, LeBron, you're good, but it's Michael, the all-time greatest NBA player, maybe the greatest player ever in the entire game, ever. That's how good this series made him. Yeah, personality, we got to know him. He was a motivator, ticked a lot of people off, but he made these players better, Marty.
Well, what I saw in that series was he was the real Michael Jordan. Luke told me and guys told me on the team, he was a hard guy to get along with because he was a perfectionist. When he practiced, you had to go all out or nothing else, and that's the way it was. And he hated to lose. You could play cards, golf, you could play ping pong. He had to win. He was the biggest loser, and when he lost the game, he took it personally. And when I went to this practice, I called up Longley's agent, and he got me into the Berto Center. That's where they practice north of Chicago. And I went to the practice, and there was only a couple people in there. And when I walked into the place, there was Tex Winter, who was really conducting the practice, and then Phil Jackson was sitting there kind of meditating, maybe reading a book. But the thing I noticed about Phil Jackson, what made him such a great coach, he knew which buttons to push on each player. He knew how to get the most out of each player. He knew that Michael was going to push him. He let him do it. And he would get Rodman. He knew how to push Rodman. He knew how to get Steve Kerr, everybody to play at their highest level.
Even Luke Longley, who they said was too slow and not athletic enough to play on that team. Michael made him effective.
And here's the thing with Luke. He was perfect for the triangle offense because you had to have a guy in the middle, a big guy who took a lot of space, and he had to be a great passer. So you notice on the triangle, the ball would go into Luke Longley, and he would pass it off to somebody. And then if Michael Jordan was isolated, they let him do his thing, okay? But with that saying, it was a perfect offense. All they wanted from Luke was 7 or 8 rebounds, maybe 8 or 9 points. He gave it to him every week, but he set those big screens because they ran off those screens. And you notice if you watch those films, there's big Luke in the middle, and he had a wide body, and he was tough to get by. And then there were some games when they didn't guard Luke, Luke was scored 15 points. So he was perfect. Probably if he didn't go to the Bulls, he might have just been an also player. But because of the Bulls and because of Michael Jordan that made him a great player, he goes down in history one of the great players of the Bulls.
And he needed Scottie Pippen.
Oh.
I mean, it was like hand and fist and brothers together. There was a period there where Scottie was injured and Michael had to do it without Scottie. Michael struggled, but they learned how to group together in a new way. That's where he really showed his leadership. Guys like Randy Brown, Paxson, Horace Grant playing better than ever. Man, we saw leadership like we've never seen before by a superstar, and there they go. They learned how to win. And then Pippen came back, and they were on their way to a championship. I love the experience of bringing them back.
You know, the Dennis Rodman story is a really great story. He never was a high school player. I think he didn't play hardly any high school basketball, and he played on some club team. And so, there was a coach from southeastern Oklahoma, in Durant, Oklahoma, is an NAIA school. This guy was in Dallas watching some club basketball, and he saw Rodman, and so he gave Rodman the scholarship, and he lived at the coach's house. Rodman never knew his father. He was born really in poverty there in Dallas, and so he went to NAIA school, and he just blossomed at that school. And then somebody from the Detroit Pistons saw him in an NAIA tournament, and they drafted him. And then he went to the Pistons, and he was the guy that needed a family. And when he was with the Pistons, he was great. And then when the Pistons broke up and he went to San Antonio, he started floundering. And that's when the Bulls picked him up. because Phil Jackson knew that if he'll treat him like his son. He brought him in, and Rodman would go over to Jackson's house for Thanksgiving and dinner, Christmas. He knew how to get Rodman to play. Now, even though Rodman would go out to 2 or 3 in the morning, but he knew Rodman would come to practice and give everything he had. And you notice Rodman never cheated that team. And of course, Michael Jordan pushed him. Michael said, "If you're going to play here, you got to give me everything." And Rodman did. He was getting 14 to 15 rebounds, 5 to 7 assists. The guy was always there. He made that team. And he always guarded the toughest guy on the other team. When they were playing against the Jazz, he always guarded the toughest guy on every team, no matter what. It was Rodman. So he made those teams great.
Well, there was a segment on Rodman where he was out partying. He was a celebrity at all the big clubs, and he always had a drink in his hand.
Always.
And they said, man, he got smashed tonight, but he was always there on time for practice.
Always.
And gave it his all at practice. And, he was going to tolerate great abuse from Michael if he was late for practice.
Oh.
Jackson, too, but the other teammates as well. He never disappointed them. He was always there.
So let me tell you about the famous practices I went to. So I snuck into the Berto Center, and I went up there. And, of course, I told you Jackson was sitting there meditating there, and there was Tex Renters was really running the practice. And there was an inter-squad meet, the Reds and Whites. Red shirts, white shirts, and the team was divided. It was split down the middle. They had different guys, and I mean, Henry, it was the most physical basketball practice I ever saw. They were fights. Matter of fact, Jordan kicked Luke Longley's chins. He got upset, and then Rodman got in a fight with Steve Kerr. It was so physical. It was almost like you thought it was World War III. And I mean, it was the most physical thing. And I will tell you this. I thought I never saw a Lobo practice like this. Nothing. And I mean, it was. And Michael Jordan, if he was down by 5 points in the inner squad, he was, as you know, he jawed a lot of people. He was a trash talker. He was talking trash, and it was physical. And it was so. I was shocked watching this practice. They're killing each other. It was 2 days before a NBA game, and finally after the practice, I said, "Look, what?" He said, "Marty, the games are easy. This is why we're so good, because these practices takes everything out of it." And believe me, Rodman was diving on the ball. This is a practice. They're diving. They're fighting each other. And that's why, and because of Michael Jordan, and he practically ran that practice, and he pushed everybody to their limits.
One player that really stood out for me was Steve Kerr from Arizona.
Yes.
And what a shooter. What a team player, but tough. He never backed down from anybody in that team, especially the superstar. They brought out that, hey, these guys don't get along too well, sort of a subject matter. So Steve Kerr stood up to Michael, and it helped the team.
Oh, yeah,
and
of course.
Steve Kerr was a brilliant shooter, by the way.
See, they had John Paxson, and then when he retired in '95, then they brought in Steve Kerr. He was the replacement. Paxson was the same type of player. They were great three-point shooters.
I love the way he played.
And so, if you would have been at that practice, Henry, you would have said, wow, no wonder these guys are good. And believe me, the basketball game they played 2 days later was the easy thing. Nothing like what they went through practice. And then Tex Winter is finally he got in the Basketball Hall of Fame, but he was the great coach at Kansas State. He had a great career in the NBA as a coach, but he was the inventor of the triangle offense, and he got the right players to play that position. Because, when they double teamed Michael, sometimes triple, there was a guy open. In that one game in '97 when they won the final, Steve Kerr was open. He made the open shot. And Michael didn't take the shot. He could have, but they double teamed and he threw it to the Steve Kerr, and he was wide open, and they won the NBA title because of that offense. So, and Luke Longley was the perfect guy for that offense.
And I remember watching Steve Kerr here in the famous pit against the Lobos when they were ranked number 1, and the Lobos upset them that night here. And Lute Olson was always ticked off at the Lobo crowd, but something for us as Lobo fans to come together and remember the magic of Steve Kerr as a college player.
Oh.
And we could really relate to them. And on the same roster, New Mexico State Aggie star, Randy Brown, who we saw on the pit, played for Neil McCarthy. He, too, found a key role on that team.
He was a backup guard that came in and played 5 or 10 minutes, but it was crucial, the 10 minutes he played. You know the thing about Steve Kerr, when he was at Arizona, I think his junior year, his father was the president of Beirut University, and his dad got murdered in Beirut there in Lebanon. And what a tragic to see his father get killed on national television. And he had to live with that. And so I have a lot of admiration. And of course he went on he's become a great basketball coach, and he had to learn from Phil Jackson. I think what made Phil Jackson so great, Henry, is he got people to meditate. He knew how to find the right buttons to get guys to play, and he brought in great coaches. He brought in guys like Tex Winter and these coaches around him, but he just knew how to get the players' mindset, mental state of mind. And when they went to play, of course, he had the greatest motivator there ever was, Michael Jordan. And so I think Phil, and why I think Phil Jackson goes down as one of the greatest, like Red Auerbach, is that he did it for the Los Angeles Lakers. He did it with Bryant and Shaq. So he did it at other places. And I think that was real important for him to win those titles in Los Angeles. That's why I think he goes down as maybe the top 3 head coaches of all time in NBA. What do you think, Henry?
Kind of a weird guy, but to see him split with Michael, I thought was interesting. And because you think, no, they'll never leave each other. And Coach Jackson goes to the Lakers. Michael, bye-bye, best friend.
Yeah.
That was an interesting adjustment. Before you leave,
go ahead.
I just want to before we go and leave that subject matter, which I recorded every segment, and I'm going to rewatch them. And I appreciate what that production company did for America to bring back justice to who, in fact, is the greatest athlete in NBA history. To me, I don't know who you spell out. I say Jordan by far.
I say Jordan. I take Jordan over LeBron James for a lot of reasons, but I think one of the guys not far behind him was Will Chamberlain, but he didn't win as many titles. And, of course, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, those are all great players. But when you put them all together and what he did, Michael Jordan has to be, I think, the greatest player I ever been able to watch.
Amen. And before we leave this segment, I want to bring up, you're wearing the Sandia High School Hall of Fame shirt today. I want to say hello to a couple of your buddies out there, Mike Buck, Lobo Football star, and Gary Spurlock, another.
Jerry Spurlock.
I know Gary, but that was Jerry, the redheaded kid from Athleticville, who played everything, all-state everything.
And Gary Allen.
Sandia High School, and number 11, Gary Allen.
And those guys are in our Hall of Fame at Sandia. And, of course, Henry and I had a chance to go to the banquet, and they got inducted. And we're going to be inducting guys in the 70s this next time around. Hopefully we'll be able to have it with all this virus thing. And people, before we go off the air, please pray for all that people get better. We do have sports. And I know it's good. We got to have some patience, but I'm just praying that we have a football season. I hope the baseball season starts up. So everybody, we'll be keeping you updates. Next week we'll talk about the baseball situation, and there's a lot of things we're going to talk about. But we really thank you for turning in on this second segment of America Talk It Up, featuring the greatest broadcaster in my time, Henry T. And I'm just a guy. I'm just the old gringo, just trying to make it happen.
And to my buddy Jerry Spurlock, forgive me, Jerry. I didn't mean Gary.
Right.
And, Jerry's out there in Colorado right now. What a nice guy. What a great athlete he was. and you know him well athletically.
And so you people out there who are watching the show out of state New Mexico, I've got people from Georgia, California, Chicago. I've got celebrities who are going to call in. So we're going to have it's not just going to be all about New Mexico. We're going to have a lot of people talking about great experiences out there. And so that's why we call it America Talk It Up, because we just don't want to be pigeonholed just New Mexico.
Yeah.
But we've got some great story. And of course, Henry will tell you some of the great stories of Muhammad Ali and his days with Ali. And I can't wait for one of those segments when you tell me the whole story.
The Indy 500 stories, the Unzer family. Wow. We got a lot to go in the future, that's for sure.
And we want to thank our sponsor, Hydroball Water Company by Kagan. Is it Kagan?
Yeah.
And you got to try their water out. And when at the end of the segment, you can go up and see the number and get a hold of them. But this water is pretty good. Matter of fact, I got it right here in front of me, and believe me, this stuff is really good.
Salute.
Let's salute, and we're out of here.
And that's as close as we can get right there.
So how we
the
say
governor will.
So we say Ashababa.
Ole.
Ole.
Yeah. Hydro Bar. The Chimbaka and Chimbaka Jr.
Thank you very much
All
for this
right.
broadcast.